Hello and welcome to Q&A. Today we are discussing ECDIS and what is the value to navigation when we are using ECDIS.
Today we are talking about value to navigation. ECDIS has a needed set of instruments for monitoring the ship's voyage. Among them is a continuous automatic position plotting of own vessel, monitoring of the vessel's progress on the route, and an arsenal of options to modify or cease the ship's progress on a certain route. Due to the huge set of functions available in the ECDIS, the route monitoring on ECDIS is cardinally different from the case when a paper chart is in use. The prime and main difference is that using ECDIS we have a real-time position plotting navigation instead of a fast-track navigation on a paper chart. And even more, ECDIS automatically offers the next set of functions like display of relevant to the safety objects, automatic alarming and look-ahead function, additional tools like parallel indexing, radar overlay, AIS overlay, and so on. ECDIS with its instruments improves situational awareness, but at the same time all of that affects both the operational performance of the officer on the watch and the bridge resource management. Always there is a danger that navigators over-trust computer-based systems and over-rely on them, making navigation decisions based solely on the ECDIS display. For a safe navigational watch, navigators must have the competence to select proper chart data and scale, check the suitability of the route as to safe water and proximity of the hazards, adjust settings and values to suit the present conditions, monitor the set of available sensors, and to confirm the position by alternative means. For that reason, procedures on board connected with ECDIS should reflect the right details for using the equipment in certain situations and conditions. For instance, let's overview some. The general procedure or the general bridge procedure must be well adapted by the company for the specific equipment on board. All bridge team who use ECDIS must be familiar with those procedures. Clear procedures should be established by the company about preferences for ECDIS settings. I mean, what are the requirements for ECDIS safety parameters? What are the margins for them? And what parameters of the ECDIS may be set based on individual preference and which may be based on master decisions? In case the vessel must use both ECDIS and paper charts, it must be decided and transparent which of the two is the primary navigation system. In the procedures for route monitoring, we have next important items. The route should be available at the bridge at any time. ECDIS, when on the route, must be switched on for route monitoring. All officers should be ready for the intended voyage. All officers must know the preferable settings in use. Navigators should communicate about the information on route plan, and the equipment status, and should cross-check information displayed on the ECDIS regularly. ECDIS alarms should never be ignored and must be critically analyzed before acknowledged. Of course, in case of main equipment failure, situation should be described in the ECDIS procedure. And I mean, like DPS failure, when the ship's position must be fixed by other means and entered into the ECDIS. Also a case of itinerary change, when a route plan has to be updated in due time. Or a case of information demand by third parties, when they have set up that the ECDIS voyage documentation is saved during the previous 12 hours. Also, procedures should reflect the changing the watch situation. Here, as in the traditional case, the officer taking over the watch should review the route plan. The changing officer must check and agree on the actual settings of the ECDIS. The one who accepts the watch must check the status of data in use ECDIS should use official ENC charts. If not, refer to paper chart also. The relieving officer should be updated about incidents during the previous watch. Onboard procedures should include the regulations for changing the crew case also. As a typical case, the relieving officer receives the information about next items: the route plan, the status of chart equipment, ENC or ECDIS, status of chart data and its availability for the voyage. I mention here the period of updates and procedures for updates. Information about the backup system and cybersecurity on board. As a general recommendation, the procedures for ECDIS should be mentioned that only official and up-to-date charts of appropriate usage should be used in the ECDIS. I meant appropriate compilation scale. The ship's position from the primary position fixing system should be monitored by independent means. Different conditions like tide, current, dense traffic, sight, and some unexpected events may always cause a need for deviating from the route.
About modes and settings for route monitoring. For route monitoring, the selected route and oven ship's position should appear whenever the display covers that area. Moreover, it may be necessary and it is possible to display a sea area that does not have the ship on the display while route monitoring. If this is done on the display used for route monitoring, the automatic route monitoring functions are continuous. It is possible to return to the route monitoring display covering oven ship's position immediately by single operator action. All ECDIS settings for route monitoring may be individually optimized for task at hand. For instance, an effective visual route monitoring can be performed by presenting the sea area in the most appropriate available scale, by adapting the contents of the displayed chart to the actual situation. Here I mean ship's draft, day or night palette, and so on, by functions such as pass track and radar image overlay, by special functions such as event marking, PTS login as example, and emergency maneuvers as example. I meant man overboard situation. Concerning automatic alarms, effective route monitoring is essentially provided by the look-ahead function for ENC objects and by track-related alarms like cross-track limited, exceeded. The alarms and indications serve to bring the situation to the attention of the watch officer, so he can intervene as required. The most relevant alarms and indications for ECDIS are defined in the performance standard, which are recommended to read for all officers on the watch using ECDIS on board.
Now I want to talk about ECDIS must-have functions. ECDIS equipment produced under a serious set of standards and must display commonly required navigational parameters and elements. So what are the must-have parameters to monitor in any ECDIS? Of course, it must indicate oven ship showing pass track with a time marks for primary track, pass track with time marks for secondary track. It should indicate vector for the course and speed made good. ECDIS must be equipped with variable range marker and or electronic bearing line. Also, it has a cursor and at the same time ECDIS can collect and keep in memory the data, for example event, where dead reckoning position and time are available and estimated position and time are displayed. ECDIS can keep Also, fix and time and the position line and time. ECDIS has a feature of displaying next items like transferred position line and time, predicted tidal stream or current vector with effective time and strength, or measured tidal stream or current vector with effective time and strength. Those may be indicated in the ECDIS. ECDIS must have an algorithm for danger highlight and clearing line. This is something related to no-go area, nor less than and no more than. It should display planned course and speed to make good. ECDIS must be able to display information about day point. It also shows distance to run. It can show at the same time planned position with date and time. It may display visual limits of lights arc to show rising or dipping range. And also ECDIS can display position and time of the wheelover point on the track. The ECDIS may provide the track information and certain levels of control for the autopilot. And here we have the next precautions about use of autopilot. We have to ensure that our own ship is close to the desired track and that there are no possibilities of conflicts with any other vessel when the equipment is engaged. We have to check that the position fix system is automatically and continuously monitored by a second independent position source. This is an IMO requirement, by the way. An alarm will be given if there is a discrepancy beyond a user preset limit. A backup navigator alarm will be given if not acknowledged by the officer of the watch within 30 seconds. When the wheelover point indication is given, officer on watch must be prepared to switch the system to manual if the change of course is inappropriate. Normally ECDIS needs to indicate 1 minute in advance of the actual wheelover point. Wheelover point alarm should be confirmed in 30 seconds period. In other case, the system will initiate the backup alarm. Alarms for cross-track error, course difference and low speed will be generated automatically, but limits at appropriate values need to be preset by the navigator. Great care must be taken when in automatic track keeping mode to ensure that position integrity is being checked at regular intervals, perhaps every 10 minutes during a typical coastal voyage. This is because the autopilot and the ECDIS will be relying on the same positional source of data, so the ship's position may be plotted on the planned track, even in the case of freezing of electronical position fixing device. This tends to give a false sense of security. That's why a proper lookout should be organized and regular position estimates must be taken by all available means.
We'll slide the button for the next question already. But to help us, we need you to subscribe to the channel, and we hope your thumb is rising up for the like